Hello, a good day to everyone watching this. I'm Sarthak Gupta, and the topic that I'm presenting for today is evaluating the impact of caching on the energy consumption and performance of progressive web apps. Now, the why do we need to focus on mobile apps? As we can see nowadays, we tend to spend at least 2 to 3 hours on our phones and using our mobile applications. And as a result, it's important to understand how they affect the energy consumption and the performance of the devices that we're using. Moving on, progressive web applications are a special type of mobile software which start off as a website and then progressively move on to become a full-fledged application, as the name suggests. Over here, we see the journey of a PWA from the point where the user accesses the website like usual to after the third or fourth visit being prompted by the website to be installed onto the device. And after being installed, the app lives on the home screen, runs full screen, and receives all the push notifications like a standard application. And understanding how caching works with limited battery life and resources of mobile devices nowadays, and how it affects the energy consumption and page load time is important, and which gives rise to our two research questions. The first research question being about how does the cache status impact the energy consumption of progressive web apps? And the second research question, how does the cache status impact the performance of progressive web apps? Moving on this slide, we see nine subjects that have been selected from diverse categories. And these 9 subjects have been selected from a list of 100 PWAs that were taken from renowned repositories such as PWA Rocks and Awesome PWAs. We made sure that the selection was pseudo-random, which would exclude any toy examples or video games, and we had a rigorous inclusion-exclusion criteria, which I would not go into detail due to the time constraint. The experiment is designed into a one-factor two-treatment setup with the cache status as the one factor and the empty and populated cache as the two treatments. The dependent variables on these treatments are the energy consumption, which is measured in joules and is the amount of energy consumed by the Mozilla Firefox browser running on the device, and the page load time, which is measured in milliseconds and which is the amount of time between the initial HTTP GET request and the final timestamp of the load time of the PWA. Moving on this slide, we see nine subjects that have been selected from diverse categories. And these 9 subjects have been selected from a list of 100 PWAs that were taken from renowned repositories such as PWA Rocks and Awesome PWAs. We made sure that the selection was pseudo-random, which would exclude any toy examples or video games, and we had a rigorous inclusion-exclusion criteria, which I would not go into detail due to the time constraint. In this slide, we can see some details about the experimental setup. We have a dedicated toolchain for automating several steps of our execution, and most importantly, in order to keep the variability of our subjects, we made sure that the measurement of each PWA is repeated 20 times, and between each run, the mobile device is kept idle for at least 60 seconds. Along with this, the Firefox app is cleared before each run to reset its cache and persistent data. Coming on to the results, for the over here, we see the energy consumption in joules on the x-axis and the frequency of the values on the y-axis. And through this histogram of energy consumption, we can see that there is the cache status does not have major implications on the empty and populated cache of energy consumption. As for the page load time, we see a distinct difference in the empty and populated cache in terms of the load time. This slide provides a better representation of what is going on uh, in terms of the energy consumption for each PWA being having quite negligible difference, while in terms of page load time, we can see that each PWA loads better with a populated cache. But in this graph, we clearly see two notable exceptions, which is the Alibaba.com and the Zomato.com. And these have considerably higher load times than with empty cache, and we believe that this is related to how the cacheable resources are handled in their first load, or it could also be a result of the service worker of Alibaba having more than 8,000 lines of JavaScript code even after beautification, which highlights the fact that it could actually be an advanced caching mechanism being used there. There are other discussion points as well, but we would not like to go deeper into them due to the time constraint. So in conclusion, we find that there has been no evidence of significant difference in the energy consumption for empty or populated cache. But in terms of page load time, we see that the PWAs load faster with a populated cache than with an empty cache. This study also provides empirical evidence about the medium gain that PWAs with cache resources can have in terms of the page load time for developers and researchers to further research on the subject. In terms of future work, due to the scope of our experiment, we had limited subjects, but we believe that performing an in-the-wild investigation with several thousands of real-world PWAs would provide a better understanding to the key enabling features and such as push notifications and the overall code quality of the PWA, and also doing further research on the multiple caching strategies and considering different and more realistic network conditions can help us in extending this study. So in summary, we spoke about the journey of the PWA, about how it tends to be a website in the beginning and turns into a full-fledged application on the device. We selected 9 subjects through rigorous inclusion-exclusion criteria and pseudo-random selection, which gave us results showing that there is negligible difference in the energy consumption of PWAs, of populated or empty cache, but for page load time, there is significant difference as PWAs load faster with a populated cache than with an empty cache. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can find us at this email.